Everything happens in a world where dragons exist. I mean, those giant fire-breathing lizards are pretty bad news, and humans have never been fans. But then the dragon hunters show up, these rad dudes who can take on those nasty beasts. Enter Ragnar, who all the ladies say is totally hot stuff. He's all about slaying dragons to get even more powerful. He's got this mystical aura and can see the future. He hangs out with his partner Sophie, who's so chill and the most awesome hunter in the whole kingdom. After barely surviving a close call with a fierce dragon, Sophie tells Ragnar he needs to step it up because she's the real champion in battles. Ragnar thanks her for saving his hide. Ragnar has to react to this. What should he say? Well, he strokes her hair. Next up, Ragnar gives us the 411 on dragon slaying. Apparently, there are 2 ways to do it. First, you can freeze their blood using the glow from silver weapons, kind of like some flashy magic trick. Or you can sunbathe them to a crisp and then collect your reward. Easy peasy, right? Wrapping things up, Sophie's like, time to bounce, let's head home. They both chill in the City of Kingdoms. In town, people totally fanboy, fangirl over Sophie. She's the talk of the town. Whispers say she's soloed about 30 dragons. Some even say she hit the big 50. All the more impressive given she's not exactly NBA height. They roll up to the Hunters Guild next. Think of it like a dragon-slaying job center. Out of everyone, Sophie's the LeBron James of dragon hunting. She's dunked on more dragons than anyone else, making her the kingdom's MVP. Ragnar believes she's just getting started. She's got mad potential. The townsfolk have a bazillion nicknames for her. The most popular? Silver Sword Siren. But Ragnar, he doesn't care for nicknames. To him, she's not just any heroine, she's his heroine. Sykes, a dude from another table, strides up to Ragna and Sophie as they're eating. Must be sweet, huh? Dining with the prodigy? He smirks at Ragna. Both Ragna and Sophie give him a puzzled look. Sykes, pissed off to the max, jabs a finger in their direction. My crew's just 1 spot below yours in 2nd place. Sophie shrugs, genuinely clueless. Sorry, still doesn't ring a bell. Leaning in closer to Ragna, Sykes snickers. How's a low-ranking ugly mug like you even teaming up with Sophie, the golden girl? You must be holding her back. What are you, her bag carrier, her doorman? You get me now, loser? In a flash, Sophie draws her sword, sending Sykes biting the dust. She steps forward, sword in hand. So what do you all want? Silver, gold, land, fame, how much? She's got fire in her eyes. Me? I want to be the best. The first time I held a silver sword, I knew. And that's why I'm a huntress. Sophie leans in. I've hunted dragons my whole life. Even took down that god dragon somewhere out there. Everyone should know. I'm the best. She scans the room, challenging. If you've got the guts to follow me, I'll hook you up with money, land, or fame. Who's in for some wild dragon hunts? Dead silence. Until Ragna pipes up. I'm in. Wherever you go, I go. That's why Ragna's my guy. Anyway, I'm wiped. Let's head home. All right, just gotta shower and brush my teeth before crashing. Come morning, with Sophie still knocked out, Ragna slips out for some training. He knows he's no dragon hunting prodigy. Even if he trained his whole life, he'd never match up to Sophie. But that's cool. He won't bite the dust until he's made himself useful to her. Out of nowhere, a ghostly figure pops up behind him. That ain't true, it whispers, hinting he's on the path to lose everything. It floods his mind with scenes of chaos, destruction everywhere. Ragna's trying to make sense of it all when he spots Sophie, hurt and apologizing to him. He snaps awake. Was it just a dream? But the ghost's voice lingers. Time's almost up. Later on, as they were walking, Sophie asked why they were even buying meat when they could just grab it from the guild's cafe. True, but they didn't have much in the way of veggies there. Good thing too, since Sophie couldn't stand them anyway. Ragna chuckled and said that's why he'd get some. He'd borrow the inn's kitchen and cook up dinner. Sophie lit up at the thought of a juicy steak if he was cooking. Ragna agreed he'd make the veggies and sneak them into the meat sauce. Come nightfall, after cleaning up from dinner, he tucked a snoozing Sophie into bed, her sword by her side. He couldn't shake that eerie vision from earlier. The next day, they checked the guild's mission board, but every job was already taken. Sykes couldn't believe there wasn't a single posting left. How are we supposed to make money to eat? Sophie mentioned dragons had been hard to find lately. Ragna nodded, then glanced at Sophie's hair getting long. And just like that, they were in the shower, Sophie getting her hair cut. Ragna was finishing up the final snips when those awful visions hit him again. He freezes. Sophie checks. Done yet? His voice shaky, he nods and finishes the cut. But those nightmares? They hit him again that night so bad he woke up in tears. Why that dream again? By morning, we see Ragna training like there's no tomorrow. But during a break, that ghostly voice is back, haunting him. Meanwhile, Sykes and his crew are puzzled. The dragon's movements are odd. They've been like this for days, like they've all headed east. That explains the no missions situation. Must be Iron City, one suggests, but Sykes dismisses it. Iron City hasn't seen a dragon attack in over a decade. Sophie turns to Ragna. Ever heard of the Silver Chicken? It's from a famous pastry shop. If we're heading to the city to hunt dragons, we should treat ourselves afterward. But Ragna's mind is elsewhere. What the hell was that? Was it even a dream? Didn't feel like one? And that figure looked like a spirit. Why do its eyes seem familiar? Sophie snaps her fingers in his face, pulling him back. You've been zoning out a lot. What's going on? Sophie brushed his hair back. You've got dark circles, and your hand, they're all banged up. You've been training extra hard, haven't you? What's eating you? Ragna's eyes darted nervously. What can I really do for you? Apart from handling your stuff, how can I truly help? Sophie recalled their first meeting. I thought you'd one day be as strong as me. Ragna scoffed. That's impossible, I don't have your talent. Sophie was convinced he had talent, even if not for dragon hunting. She had a gut feeling Ragna would become powerful in his own way. She didn't know when it would happen or what would trigger it, but it excited her to stand by his side until that moment. The scene shifts, delving into Ragna's past. At just 3 years old, he had watched dragons devour his parents. Some relatives took him in, but dragons claimed them too. Later, a noble family bought him, but their mansion also got torched by a dragon. The survivors blamed Ragna for every catastrophe, saying he attracted the dragons. They even dubbed him the Cursed One. But through every beating, every torment, he endured. Then, Sophie entered the picture. She saw potential, inviting him to hunt dragons with her. Having a connection with dragons as a hunter isn't bad, especially if you can survive them. Ever thought of being a dragon hunter? If I come with you, you'll get hurt too. It wasn't your fault. They died because they were weak. The strong don't die. I'm strong, so I won't. She was determined to prove her point and extended her hand to him, urging him to join her. It wasn't long before they faced their first dragon. Ragna was paralyzed with fear, but Sophie took it down with ease, all while grinning. That moment solidified it for Ragna. This girl was unstoppable. He couldn't fathom the idea of her falling before him. Years rolled by, and Sophie asked if he still believed he was cursed. Ragna shook his head. With Sophie by his side, how could he? Before any dragon takes me out, I just want to be with you, as long as I can. But those haunting visions, they came back again. Waking up in a cold sweat, he wondered if time was running out. The next day, the guild's all abuzz. Hunters are losing their cool, shouting for the 411. And here's the shocker. Iron City's dived. Yup, that Iron City. The place everyone called the Dragon Hunters' Playground. Sophie's like, what the heck? And flags down the B team to get the lowdown. Sykes mentioned that he had no idea either. At dusk, a horde of dragons invaded the city and communications were cut off. Now, the kingdom assigned them an emergency mission to eliminate the horde of dragons that attacked Iron City. Sykes told Sophie not to follow him, or he would take all the glory from her. Sophie, somewhat angry, mentioned that somehow they had told him everything he wanted to know. He's a good sidekick after all. She wanted to ask Ragna his opinion, but we saw that he was very scared, covering up what he saw in his visions. The whole environment was tinged red, and suddenly they realized the city was in flames. Ragna, frightened, saw it was the fire from his nightmares and told Sophie it would be better if she escaped. She asked why, to which he replied that otherwise she would die. Sophie took him by the arm to calm him down and assured him she wouldn't die. Ragna asked her to wait, but seeing that she paid him no mind, ran after her. In the city, the inhabitants were running for their lives, while the soldiers tried to stop the dragons without much success. They realized there were too many. None of them understood what was happening, and from the flames they saw a man covered in blood emerge. They approached the subject to ask if he was okay, to which he replied that blood is his sword. Blood is fire. The guy bid good morning to the mortal humans and told them it was time to die, since he is a superior dragon. Meanwhile, Ragna ran looking for Sophie and hid to see the enemy. When he observed him and managed to recognize him, it was the man from his dream that would finish her off. Ragna would not let that happen, so he decided to attack him. On the other side, the others tried to attack him in vain and wondered why that guy was there. Why did a superior dragon come to a place like this? If they did nothing, they would die. Behind appeared Ragna amidst the flames. If he managed to eliminate him, Sophie would live. But when Ragna attacked the dragon with his sword, the sword broke. Ragna fell into the river, so he must be alive. Sophie was going to go look for him, but now, angry, she asked that guy how he dared hurt her Ragna, that she would kill him for hurting him. Meanwhile, we see Ragna falling deeper and notice how he starts to drown. He tells us that after that dream, after losing Sophie, he blindly embarks on a revenge mission, swearing he will wipe out all dragons to extinction. From that day on, he will fight day and night until he becomes stronger. He will push himself to the limit. All the new companions who join him along the way, he will also lose. He will lead a life of pure losses. Over time, he will discover the power that is beyond even his limit. And when he achieves it, he will realize it wasn't worth it. He thought maybe all he wanted was to die, but he never died. He always managed to survive. That whole story was told to him by that ghost, and here we realize that guy is his future self. He came to tell him that he repudiated him a lot, turned a little girl into his heroine, and took advantage of her. If he really appreciated her, he should be much stronger than anyone in order to protect her. Now he is finally strong. He is the strongest of all, even to face the Dragon King. But in his world, he has no one left to protect. What was the point of becoming so strong if he has no one left? In that case, Ragna runs towards his future self and asks him to give him his power. Now is the time. Right now, he needs it to save everyone. His future self agrees. That's exactly what he was thinking. Then he stabs him with his sword. He hopes now he understands how regretful he felt for not having the necessary strength that day. At that moment, Ragna wakes up and starts screaming in pain. The others wonder what's going on, while he continues screaming. From this moment on, his future and past will be connected. From now on, all his power will flow through him. Together, they will crush that horrible future. Sophie, for her part, was already quite tired. The other tells her not to give up, to which Sophie responds that she is a prodigy after all. She recognizes he is quite strong. She asks him if he is some kind of dragon god or something, and the other, angry, asks her what she just said, not to dare compare a mere vessel like him to the most venerated god of his lineage, and calls her a damned vermin while throwing a flame at her. His name is Urin. He is the 10th in the bloodline of Dala. It seems humans often call them superior dragons, and he is the lowest dragon in his category. Before saying goodbye, he has something interesting to share with her. The reason why this city and then the nation will be destroyed is because the god whom his lineage worships has taken a liking to what they call sweets. He was especially fond of one shop in particular. The silver chick was the favorite dessert of his god. However, yesterday that shop was looted by some thieves, causing them to go bankrupt. This saddened him deeply. He said to just forget it and ordered the destruction of the entire kingdom. Yes, that's the reason. He tells her that things like the rise and fall of human nations are decided by the dragons and their god. Did she think she could stand up to him? He hasn't even been fighting seriously. Besides, dragon hunters posed no threat to his lineage. Now Sophie understands how weak she is. It's time to die. At that moment, something happens. The superior dragon wonders if it was an illusion, but quickly realizes it wasn't and feels something approaching. He follows the others with his eyes and is impressed, as the dragons are frozen and we see Ragna walking among them. When he decided to eliminate the dragons, he fought blindly. He almost died several times, but he recovered again to keep fighting. After so many defeats, the victories finally started coming, until he never lost again. His future self tells us that after a while, the silver sword became part of him. After so many defeats, the victories finally started coming, until he never lost again. His future self tells us that after a while, the silver sword became part of him. His hand and his sword fused, and not only that. It was a creepy experience, but that did not interfere with his dragon hunting. His whole body suffered extreme pain, and he ignored it to keep fighting. 5 years later, he was already fused with the silver sword, and in 3 more years, he developed a technique to increase the silver in his body. In 4 more years, he gained the ability to control the silver at will. 10 years later, he surpassed the limits of the human concept and finally perfected the ultimate martial art. It is the pinnacle for the annihilation of dragons. It is the martial art of the silver oral. Ragna then starts to advance towards the dragon, which starts to freeze. The other knows this feeling. It reminds him of the absolute days of his lineage. those who receive the title of king from their god. That aura shows a superiority of power. Still, he says that's impossible. That can't happen. There's no way he'd be afraid of a mere human. This is his true form, where the magic in his blood is completely unleashed. Only in this form does he unleash his maximum power. Ragna simply freezes him using one of his hands, traps him in an instant, and then destroys him into 1,000 pieces, catching everyone's attention. After that, Ragna deactivates his power and returns to normal. Sophie, who was behind him, calls out to him. Upon seeing her safe, Ragna is relieved. Here, Ragna remembers the words of his future self. He regretted not having more power that day, how he longed to see her once more. As he hugs her, he collapses, unable to contain so much sadness. He can't believe Sophie is alive. Sophie tries to calm him down. She says she survived. She knows he did his best, but Ragna responds that this isn't true. In reality, all that power doesn't belong to him. It was only given to him, and that person is no longer here. Although he still retains his memories, he knows how much he wanted to see her again. In another distant place, we see a woman ask Ragna of the future if he died standing up. She had already told him he had to pay a price. The Ragna of the past who is taking care of this won't last much longer either. Despite that, he has a rather sentimental look. The woman has been with him for a long time, and this is the first time she's seen him without a frown. Anyway, now his dream of creating a world without dragons hinges entirely on his past self. They should realize that the only fortunate city was Ragna's, as the other 6 cities faced attacks from the superior dragons. Those 6 cities, including the capital, fell, marking the birth of the dragon plague. The following day, Sophie shares that all the dragons have departed, and the situation has settled down. However, half the city is in ruins with many casualties. When Ragna regains consciousness, he's overjoyed to see her alive, even if she's clueless about his emotional state. At the moment, they're in Sykes' room. He rented it for them since their inn got destroyed. Sykes is curious about their next move. Ragna intends to journey to another nation because the dragon god decreed the obliteration of this kingdom. Dragons treat their god's command as absolute, so they won't chase them across the border. Considering the proximity of the neighboring city, Ragna believes they should make haste. But Sykes, puzzled, interrupts, questioning Ragna's true identity. The Ragna he knows lacked talent, skill, and intellect, a mere parasite, an utter loser. He's dying to know what happened earlier, how Ragna acquired such power and who he truly is now. Ragna tries to respond, but fatigue overtakes him, and he drifts to sleep. Sophie theorizes his overwhelming power, likely a result of intense training, is draining him, making him unstable. She's just hoping he retains this strength. Sykes asks if Ragna murmured anything, but she dismisses it. Suddenly, a resounding noise grabs their attention. Gazing out, they see the forest encroaching. Sykes, in panic, rushes to the highest spot to sound the alarm. The forest is assaulting them. Sophie springs into action, and in the midst of chaos, the mysterious woman appears. Their destinies are about to intertwine. This is where the tale unfolds.